Little black people. I forgot what I titled the video. In other words, oh, Meidas Network. It's ridiculous. These people making there's mental decline in the president. There are hundreds of countries with people at locations, areas, and states forcing the individual leaders to entertain them still with criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects in nature, using words like crimes while their predicate acts with facts roles and tactically delusions raw. There are medical rackets also with databases, with data stacking at locations world and with the World Wide Web. All kinds of digital faking and changing what's digitally recorded. And the communications is greater than more finite than what is said. Names on all sides of criminal and civil cases are being and have been used remotely with the people. In other words, as an interbranch involved with criminal and civil cases too, as the judges, the courts, the members, their family members, their neighbors, they're all planting the same evidences at the same time, the same self-value uses of sequence shift solutions, and with the news at the same time to prevent also in the future anything but there's functions by a breaching method shows them how they have to hide things relative to their use of location slash s where and how we are actually individually grouped and together, not just because we're tactical terror from how nature has us communicates about with us by using those differences, but we aren't afforded to use short words with that and convictions with that the way it has us because we have entertained, you know, you know, court cases, for example, that have state collusions individually grouped and together the branch to govern the difference of their criminal guilt with that or the intelligence tied to them, which is simultaneously a whole bunch of nations, same problem there. Criminal enterprises, private ones, the news next to it, the difference of that. All that is used by worse. That's why it's to pay attention where how sickly it was, so sickly distinctly with those sick laws against everyone. Not to leave out the breaching method right there, discernible. When you start paying attention to it, it tells you that regardless of who made it up to, what it's about, which trials are about, the courts themselves criminal and only allowed criminal. If you pay attention, what laws were entrenched at the time, only allowed people were only allowed to hurt other people and pretend other at the same time. People only allowed to help them, hurting them other ways at the same time, while keeping other things other themselves blamed for what nature itself. And our founders demonstrated for us to blame on the breaching method. And before our founders were born, when Native Americans were fighting with Native Americans syntactically, it was about how to best counter the breaching method that had been sustained since before their parents were born. The people that were adults and needing to fight about how to react because they were forced to react because it tactically denatured the ground below the feet of the entire species body to force, check, and hurt value nature systems other, only remembered being and having been. Boxing. Our founders' things are native too. See, president slash chief. We've been those people without passions and emotions with the isms, communism, in other words. They cannot defend that if you pay attention, in other words. And for discern what our founders left us to afford to discern. You guys have kept other things, others yourselves, blamed for where and for how Americans need to speak and to discern others. Where how sickly distinctly Americans are hurt at locations A through Z by a breaching method. That is not just criminal foreign influences. It is hyper criminally foreign influence. And other countries have the same problem because the same breaching method needs us here and there, blaming criminal foreign influences until they're real more and more. All criminal foreign influences it made, but everything it did through our own. black pupils. The North and South had collusions with the slavery method, and after it to cover it up. That's the breaching method shows them how it needs to. They need to hide how it showed them to speak for the law, to counter the real worst causes of, like, the worst negative value nature progressions, accidents, like killers. The people that are only allowed counters and helpers with the people hurt by that the most. Are people collusions with predicate acts with facts methods, is many ways equivalent to and worse than that, because it is also involved with murders. But it's a group method, so no one gets caught. The breaching method showed everyone how to speak for the law. Black pupils, it is time. We led nature itself. And that's what it gave us pantheism for. To heal the republic for which we stand with science. We want to value it also as a religion for economic reasons, forced by the breaching method, but also forced by nature itself. But nature with its ground. And the species body longs this, where we stand. And we long, all exceptions and exception natures to that, to search for how and why. Because once we find that, we find we're all good. And then we first further too, simultaneously check to make sure it's positive onto the system, so we know we could build on it. If we ever have to change, we could. Below the suits and ties and the counters and exceptions. And through it, there are styles of fact, human nature that can't defend themselves. They want to have, more than Einstein. Every subject is about relativity / hyperrelativity. It's right here to discern. Black pupils. Whites of eyes. This is about relativity. There's an identity of hyperrelativity. There's not our species body, is not the other species body. But it's both anyway. And it is an increasing identity of value, because there's an increasing identity of volume that way, as an identity of forever nature that is making more of itself demonstrably through temporary / lasting space nature. And it is the equal identity of relationship to all parts of space / existence. It is equally relative to positive and negative to an extent. But it is making more positive that is also positive onto itself through what is temporary / lasting space nature. And this is what English was revealed to teach with other ancient languages, and with the ancient pantheism being led by the identity, in singular, the identity of hyper invisible but still discernible. It is also about showing us how it is hyper additional nature. But where there appears to be exceptions that would have a physical name, they come with demonstrations of the same thing. /s, it is functional, where and how it is functional, being a distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible, and having distinct identities of relationship to the parts of itself, equally distinctly, but non-distinctly, and simultaneously, simultaneously, we can discern. But people are offensively stealing our evidences and involved with other natures of organized crime leveraged against us, individually grouped it together, if we use short where it's proper. And regarding World Trade Center predicate acts, WFSB has rules with dozens of people from Wethersfield, Connecticut, involved at and next to their locations, involved with, people involved with more predicate acts against Hartford, Connecticut, and the people of Hartford, Connecticut in their streets on Hartford, Connecticut. and houses on them and people in there. In other words, let alone just in Rocky Hill. And these are people at next to the campuses intercities. And Bob were putting predicate acts with their behavior, racketeering, worse than war crimes. Whole bunch of people tied to a Luigi Guerrero and Paul Zano and John Maiano have sequence shifts in predicate acts with people who have wire crimes with the names Cololo and Smith near me, and with the Wethersfield Police and Whiting Forensics per themselves. Their roles with people with town offices through time and the sides of and at the community center of Wethersfield. Increasingly, there's a Paul Epted and his sister involved with the medical at Hartford Hospital, foreign and domestic medical and military, involved with putting fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. And with their exceptions on Facebook, they have roles with uses of exceptions, exception nature criminally foreign influence. And with the judges and prosecutors using and having used them remotely, and the FBI director, they'll tell you we don't know each other. I never had a word of conversation with a Paul Epted in my life. Fred Grise recorded, sought me out as a stranger to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. He has roles with predicate acts with the intelligence families near me, involved with a whole bunch of different countries at the same time, involved also with their educators putting fake things in databases, also with kids at private schools coming out to the campuses of public schools to make illusions look real. And per use /S of this years later, when he wasn't even living there, when I first came back to Wethersfield to live, he was right at that corner of Tim O'Brien, at the corner of Hangdog Lane and Highcrest Street. And, walking. In other words, they've been doing things since. They've been roles with people since too, as further involved with I don't know the names of them, but there are a whole bunch of people tied to a Leahy family, and ones with the name Lombardo from other areas. I never saw them in my area, but the people associated with them have been planting predicate acts and roles with them on all sides of my house, including where people speak. They influence people to have conversations and repeat things that others tell them. This is on a mass scale at countries. They are being used as a fact sheet, as a volume, as a fact sheet nature, as criminal and citizens nature, incapable of defending their identities of logic and uses of difference or of names as premises, and of defending that and of affording to be, let alone to protract someone with use of syntax proper. The Connecticut Corrections Offices has roles, increasingly with a Ray Cololo, and now with a Bob Chase, with a Phil Cololo, and with a Joe DeMauro, with foreign and domestic military, with criminal enterprises involved with grammar schools and middle school kids, putting them with fake ties to other middle school kids. There are not legitimate roles with the military, with the unmarked police forms and the inter lawsuit leaders and all that. No, in other words, I don't want them on paper with the Wethersfield Police switching and forging names. And make sure this Joey Quest, another one that apparently is kid or whatever, doesn't pretend that he or his father ever known me. And with the FBI director involved too. We need them on paper with the people on off WFSD with predicate acts with them. And next to Fox Connecticut News. Increasingly next to Fox Connecticut News, there are criminally foreign influenced people, all kinds of natures of organized crime against the people of Hartford, Connecticut, more than there are people, more than there are houses and streets on them. In other words, in Hartford, Connecticut, as the people right on top of the where the highway divides the north end of Hartford from the rest of Hartford, and where how Hartford unfolded, other than George Washington and our founders, and behind them, with James Madison and his plan before he was a president. You have criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought psychiatry experts at the mental health locations where they're forcing mental evaluations and drugs counterings. They're putting fake uses of drugs, those families that worked there with the lawyers and the military, foreign and domestic, the intelligence, the difference between the FBI, the CIA. I only know for certain the CIA, the FBI, but I know other ways to do it too. We can correlate the CIA's involved with the people next to there. And these people pretended I had conversations with themselves and pretended I made conspiracy theories. These are people involved with Los Solitos and people involved with body dumping spots. People that say they're involved with the mafia and with the courts and prosecutors involved interstates with this. Eric Jensen and Mike Roberts have roles interstates with state police families planting evidences, fake ties, fake natures, and ties to me with people on all sides of my house too. Sequence shifts with them too to show you in the area, intercities and interstates involved. It has something to do with the roles with Middlesex Community College, with an officer that said the name Scalora is involved with it for the timing of it. I don't know, and he also did that to pretend I had conversations with Scaloras that never were. Increasingly, people with the name Scalora have been affecting conversations with me and demonstrations to me. A lot of the times I didn't say anything because people adapt. And then I don't learn because I knew I was going to have to defend. There's people really sick with the schools involved with the name Scalora and next to the schools and the difference of the roles there or not. Increasingly, the Scalora families involved with people with whiting forensics, with foreign and domestic military, and medical families involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. People from Pakistan involved. A whole bunch of people with the corners of streets using that to hide lie progressions and their roles with differences rackets. So please get no Judge Napolitano because his Facebook page is involved with that, with Fox Connecticut News. That won't help me. Please, Fox Connecticut News, help me. This is going to bring up the criminality of people next to you, but these are people involved with making and using words like crimes consciously, having used them, leaving out their roles with predicate acts with facts methods, and framing innocent people. Enforcing child abusers, leaders of kids years apart. They had roles with that, with use /as of that, with other names. So a whole bunch of people tied to in other words, a whole bunch of intelligence. And then, in other words, it's against the law to pretend people are ratting when they're trying to pretend that strangers pretended they knew them. And they have roles with the interbranch refusing to get on paper, forging and switching names. Because they've been collusions at the crime scenes on a mass scale. All kinds of methods of it recorded. All kinds of uses of all natures of investigators, and their campuses, criminally foreign impulse, tactical delusions raw. All sides of Central Connecticut State University has a whole bunch of people tied to and has a sub-Bajario further involved with confessions and leaking, as you're going to demonstrate. He was influenced to pretend to act so others could fake recorded things and use what they recorded to make it look like fake things, including as collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases and the people involved with the World Trade Center attack. So a whole bunch of people in the Britain Superior Court and all sides of Central Connecticut State University. I've never seen a sub-Bajario there, but they're involved with identity theft, frauds, and slanders with him there. And intercities. It has something to do with their roles at all sides of the community center and with their conjunctions to the judicial branch offices, increasingly involved with predicate acts with an identity thefts and frauds with a sub-Bajario, intercities. A whole bunch of people that demonstrated this is true. And you know, he sought me out to demonstrate it's true, make a fake exception of having communications with me. And he's still involved with that as a scam, owing me money now. In other words, too, demonstrably. But he's involved further too with some child offenders of kids, proven and more recorded, including medical and sexual and more psychiatrists and psychologists involved with him, putting fake things in databases, acting with foreign and domestic, their federal and interstates police forms associated with a Joshua Striker too at Trinity College. A whole bunch of people tied to a Ray Cololo with a Joshua Striker, putting fake things with a whole and lying to me to a whole bunch of people at Trinity College about me with them, and with a Mark Violet was doing it too, and Eric Olson, Matt Olson. They were influenced to pretend they knew me there with the people involved, planting evidences on my street from other areas. I never saw them in my street in my life, and I never saw them inside of the middle school. They tried to make one fake quick exception with the Matt Olson. I never saw Eric Olson around there or anywhere. In other words, and except for out next to Trinity before when I was in high school, and that's right when they're planting. They're planting things with kids that knew each other in middle school. I didn't know each other, and they're with the overt criminal enterprises, and they're lying about with the exceptions, the ones that knew other. They're putting fake things in databases. Increasingly, there's people tied to mayors in Wethersfield involved with the news, covering up the news, covering up their roles with the FBI at Wethersfield town offices, whole bunch of foreign and domestic countries with the fire departments involved. And you guys bring it up, and you guys run into Harvard Hospital. Their patients and criminals are increasingly stacking fake things in databases with the same house/S involved with them. Rick Cianfaglione, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He's involved with a whole bunch of others I don't even know. With a Leahy family at Harvard Hospital and people next to them, putting fake things in databases with their teachers and lying to the kids so make it look real. And with the Leahy family, and at corners of buildings, and something to do with their roles with corners of streets with that, and the exceptions like on my house, on my street, and they make everyone have sense and sensibilities that only are capable of repeating fake things that are connected too. There are constantly the intelligence community frames two sides of things, and both sides in the people estimating the difference of their guilt is recorded, used consciously, wherein how there is clearer than day differences, racketeering roles, worse than war crimes. There are black and white female judges recorded involved with the hyper evidential, with some black KKK Confederate flag theme on Facebook and intersocial media, and so associated with this Meidas touch and these natures of people that are using their platforms as leaders that have means to be heard by people. They're using it instead to pretend they have that they're capable of speaking on mental diagnosis of presidents. They're forcing left out all kinds of evidences, also as collusions, also with wars and with cover-ups of them as collusions with the World Trade Center attack, is including with the January 6th treatment. You guys are covering up the whole predicate acts methods that WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, has with names that were next to the World Trade Center, increasingly involved with them with predicate acts before and since roles, including their roles with kids, pretending it's only about news and showing the kids that there are professions out there. These professions are being and haven't been used remotely, criminally foreign influenced, tactically delusions wrong. I'm not even a lawyer. They should fear God for changing my digital evidences to Judge Napolitano and for bringing up the map this way and then using words like, pretending not to understand people. All exceptions and exception nature, using that to hide that. Get on paper. Get them one name sequence, please. They've been forging names, switching names, preventing writing into branch Judge Napolitano on a mass scale. They already have all sides of criminal and civil cases. The courts themselves, the intelligence, foreign and domestic, put in the same sequence, chef self-valued as collusions with the news at the same time. Just follow men to the law and you'll see the revelations will come. Watch what was actually recorded. Black pupils.